Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Lamar, the host of the Youth Leaders in Wealth Management podcast. Today, I'm lucky to be joined by Mr. Jay Penica, a private wealth advisor with Ameriprise and a Indiana University at Pennsylvania alumni. How are you doing today, Mr. Penica?
Great, Ryan. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on, and I just wanted to start this conversation off with getting to learn a little bit about you and your inspirations. So, what inspired you to go into the wealth management industry?
Multiple things. The first would be, as I was growing up, one of my family's goals was to be able to put myself and my brother through college, or at least to be able to help put my brother and I through college. And the financial advisor, or at least the person that called themselves a financial advisor that was helping my parents all along the way, when it came time for us to go to school, made it an admission that what he had helped them do was, instead of save money toward college, put money in a life insurance plan that was not going to work to help fund our college education. So I watched my own parents struggle with not being able to attain that goal, which caused me to, work my way through school. And that was a plan anyway, was just for my parents to help, but truly work my way through school and supplement where they were able to help out of cash flow. That was part of the impetus to become a financial advisor. The second impetus was I was originally going to go to school for physical therapy, and I wasn't able to make it through the anatomy class. And as I changed majors and then finally graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, what I came to realize was the financial services industry was hiring. I had the experience that they were looking for with being able to speak with people, meet with individuals, and the capacity to learn the material. So when everybody was hiring, it felt really good to get into the industry. And what you quickly realized, though, was everybody was hiring. Which changed the nature of it. You realized what you were hired to do was bring your friends and family in back then, where now it's about helping people. So two reasons. One was personal to the family, being able to do a better job than that person had done for my own parents, and the other was the career was wide open back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, I kind of have a similar story in the sense that my parents split up at a young age, and that was based on money, right? So being able to go through college now at I'm 21 years old has been largely on my shoulders, right? So being able to help someone provide good, strong foundational advice to help put their kids through school or basically keep a family together is really important to me and what my aspirations are, right? So and I think it's so different how the financial industry has changed
Mm-hmm.
since where I see my position starting in it and what the position was back then. So much more cold calling and reliance on just basically utilizing your personal network to get clients and stuff like that. It's a whole different industry now.
It is. When we first started, it was a minimum of making 1,000 to 2,000 phone calls a week, and they were
Wow.
really just cold calls. What you would find is if you made 1,000 phone calls, you would set or at least have 10 people tell you that they'd like to come in and meet with you. Out of those 10, 5 would show up. One person would be serious about making financial decisions and helping their family move into a position of being more financially stable. Um, and to grow a practice, at least in a way that you could have it 40 clients or 50 clients at the end of the year and have a sustainable foundation to grow from, you had to make a minimum of 1,000 phone calls a week. So most of your day wasn't spent watching markets. Most of your day wasn't spent writing financial plans. Most of your day was spent directly on a telephone, dialing phone numbers in the hopes of getting somebody that was interested in making their family better. Where today, most of our time is spent analyzing markets, in particular, analyzing a family's personal economy and figuring out how to disconnect that family's personal economy from the overall economy by using good, sound financial planning strategies, how to help them build a cash reserve, how to protect their family correctly through workplace benefits like life insurance or disability or private insurance is helping them have the right legal documents in place so that if life changes, they can account for that. And then still saving the right way to avoid taxes in the future, create the income they want to, whether that's for retirement or create the dollars they need for goals like education or buying a second home. Where we spend our time today is so very different than where it was 24 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely for the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ability to spend more time working on the client experience, working on actual sound financial advice, improving the techniques that we use to offer better services for people is so much better than spending time on the phones looking for people to provide services to, right? It's better for everybody. Nobody wants to be on the phone, and nobody wants their financial advisor to spend 99% of their time on the phone either. So it's definitely improved from what it was.
I couldn't agree more.
And kind of a question I have off of that is: was your first stop Ameriprise, or were you somewhere before Ameriprise? And how did you go about that first opportunity?
Oh, my first stop was Ameriprise. I've been lucky enough to be here 24 years.
That's
And I do say
incredible.
lucky. I alluded to earlier, everybody was hiring back in the early 2000s. When I say everybody, all the financial services firms were hiring. Merrill was hiring, Edward Jones hiring, Prudential was hiring, Ameriprise, which used to be American Express. Everybody was. As I went to a career fair and was approached by financial services firm after financial services firm, one of the things that I first began to ask was, well, can I come in and watch what you do? And so many of the firms that were there took offense to that. They almost were aloof about it. No, you can interview for this job, but no, you can't come in shadow or see what we do to make sure this is where you want to work. But I was lucky. One of the advisors in our local area, who was an American Express, now Ameriprise advisor, said, sure, you can come in and you can sit down and watch how I have client interactions. And as I sat and I watched what he did with clients, which was even back in 2000, he wasn't a salesperson. He was already a real financial advisor back in 2000. He was sitting counseling families on what their next best action was. He was helping them take action on those pieces of advice he was given. It was awesome to watch him making a difference in people's lives. And it was very easy to say as a young person, this is what I want to do. And this is how I want to do it. So I interviewed with American Express, and through a 3 interview process, 3 weeks later was onboarded, and I was out taking tests or studying for my tests, getting ready to take them. So I've been here ever since.
Oh yeah, that's really crazy. So I think it's funny how, like, as soon as you pass all your licensing exams, from what I hear, it was like sink or swim. Like, get on the phone, see if you can get some clients, and if you couldn't, you were out, and if you could, you can stay. And it must have been a lot of turnover around the people that were hired around the same time as you, right?
I came in a group of 30. 6 months later, in that group of 30, there was two of us that were left. And there was
Wow.
another group of 25 that were starting a 6-week training program right behind us, and another 25 behind them. The industry was really just hiring en masse at that point. And it was sink or swim. If you failed one of your license tests, you were immediately terminated. You didn't even get to go pass go. So you had to pass all 3 of your license tests within an 8-week period of time. So your SIE back then was about 1,500 pages of cliff notes. And the test itself was expected to be an 8-hour exam where you went to a testing center, you took a 4-hour module, took a half an hour break in between, and another 4-hour module. So even the SIE was very different back then. You consumed the test in one 8-hour period. The life
Yeah.
accident test was a separate one, and then your Series 66 was a separate exam again. And you had zero chance of failure. If you failed, you just didn't move on. And then similarly, once you
Yeah.
started your career and you started to make those phone calls, if you didn't begin to bring on clients within your first 4 weeks, you were on an action plan, and another 4 weeks later, if you hadn't brought on at least 4 clients in that initial 4-week period, you were also gone.
Yeah. And, I think, like, pressure makes diamonds, but it also busts a lot of people in a sense, and we are talking about people here. That's a lot of pressure to put
Hmm.
someone under to have to provide for their family. And it's just a completely different world from what I understand. There is still opportunities like that out there, but I'm glad that the industry has kind of changed and morphed into something that's a little bit better for both the clients and the advisors.
Hmm. Yeah, the model that we've morphed to is the mentoring model. So individuals like yourself,
Mentoring model.
if you think about individuals much like yourself, you now can find mentors like myself and John, who you know, and others in the industry, where you come in and you are directly aligned as a junior advisor with a senior advisor so that you can learn how to give true financial advice and make a difference in a family's life. And you begin to grow your skill by being that person's partner as a junior advisor or as an analyst or
Yeah.
behind the scenes staff person. So you learn each of the nuances of financial planning. How do you get to put together a financial plan that makes sense for that family? What strategies do you deploy across that multitude of areas in their financial life? Right? How do you then educate a client and become a consultant to that client and an educator, not a salesperson? Right.
Yeah, that's a much better
Mm-hmm.
type of opportunity than it was. Yeah, so I appreciate the insight on that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your current role. What are some of your primary responsibilities today?
So primary responsibilities today are really threefold. It is to manage, and I use that word specifically, manage, meaning manage the tasks, manage the workflow in the office here. And there's a staff of 5 and 4 other advisors that are here with me. It's also then to lead that group of individuals. So we have clearly defined mission and a vision and a value for what we want to provide for clients, how we want to integrate into the community and make a difference in the communities in which we live. And it's to lead that portion of it so that we're always striving for better outcomes for clients, better outcomes for our community, better outcomes then as a business and getting business growth along the way as well. And then it's also still having a direct hand in seeing clients. So I still see about 200 families a year and am responsible for their financial lives while then growing the business primarily through referrals that the other advisors that are here with me then take on under that service model that we've defined, which is simply, we define it as know, guide, protect, and value our clients. And so we're either working to know what their goals are better, we're working to guide them with that advice, we're working to protect them sometimes from themselves when they're either making a bad emotional decision around work or money or family, or we're protecting them in the real sense with some type of protection solution like an insurance policy or helping with group benefits. And then valuing them, valuing people and making sure that they know that we exist as a business because they put their faith and trust in us, but also taking that faith and trust they put in us and pushing it back out into the community to do good works, and growing the community for people that may never be able to afford or use our services, but helping make the community a better place because we all live here. So using that as a value to the community as well. So really 3 roles right now.
Yeah, and I really like that last part there about creating values to the community. That's something that's really important for me. I didn't grow up doing too much community service or anything, but I do love the idea of what we're doing here at Cutton and what you guys are doing, just giving back to the community and being able to really be this industry provides a lot of resources for us to do some good and not just for ourselves, for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool that you guys are giving back and having that as kind of one of your roles. And it's also cool that you're still seeing clients while managing teams and managing workflow, like you said. 200 families is a lot of people to help, and that's 200 families, at least 200 people that you're making an impact on their lives, and by providing guidance and leadership for the other advisors under you, you're helping another 200 families per person, right? Or however many they have. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like you have this web of impacts that you're having by being a leader, which I think is so important and so crucial that people that have, that are really great at their job to be mentors for others to do better, because that affects your range of giving back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Helping more people is really, at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do when I decided to join this. I originally wanted to be a doctor, like how you wanted to do physical therapy. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to either be a PA or a doctor, and I thought I wanted to do that because I wanted to help people. But I feel like at the end of the day, this I can help people just as much as I can being a doctor, right? And doing that, being a leader, providing your guidance through multiple channels, not just your own clients, is expediting and making your impact exponential, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's an interesting comparison to physical therapy or being a physician, right? In two ways. One, our physician peers or our medical peers, they get to see people when there is something wrong. We get to see somebody when they're daydreaming about what they want to go right, and we get to help them with our advice make those things become a reality. They don't just come to us when something's wrong. They come to us usually when they're dreaming about, this is what I want to go right in my life. That's a really neat interaction right from the beginning. Two, where financial advisory has come from and gone, your generation of advisor gets to practice much closer as a professional, just like a doctor would. And you can be prescriptive with your advice, just like a doctor can be prescriptive with their treatments. You no longer have to be a salesperson. You can simply sit back and look at a client and say, okay, what is this person's next best action? And then be really prescriptive with helping them take that next best action to move to that goal that they've put forth to you. It's a really awesome
Yeah,
time
I
to be
like that term.
an advisor.
I like prescriptive, to be able to sit in front of someone and not have to give the same generic advice or something like that. You can look at someone's entire situation, and that's kind of where the industry is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
That everything is going to kind of be a one-stop shop. Synergies between multiple different types of this industry, they're going to come together and provide like the utmost client experience for our clients, in the sense that you can come and we can give all the advice that you'd possibly need in the financial realm, insurance, accounting, whatever it may be. And you can really provide in the way that a doctor can look at all your symptoms and look at your health history and all these other factors and provide the right medicine for you. We can do the exact same thing, and it won't just be something that works for everybody, right? It will be a little more in tune with who the person is, which I think is cool. Eliminating that kind of less of that salesy type of atmosphere and
Mm-hmm.
moving more towards a prescriptive model, I think is really awesome.
Yeah. Oh, the other way to put it would be an alignment model where you're aligning that person to their goals, and
It's better, yeah.
you're aligning all of their actions to their goals in a financial sense or tax sense or legal sense. And it's morphing again, right? It's morphing beyond as an industry. It's more from salesperson to advice giver, and it's now morphing from advice giver to the person who is giving both the advice and, like you said, creating that surround sound environment where you're actually able to help them take action on all of those things too. So you're
Yeah.
moving from
Yeah.
advice giver also to then action taker. So it's, again,
Action taker.
exciting time to be in the industry.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see where this is going. And then, kind of a question I have off of that is about qualities of financial advisors. What are some qualities that you think are crucial to becoming a successful financial advisor?
I think there's two important kinds of advisors. And so there's different qualities for both. There's the advisor that is the behind the scenes advisor, right? And that's an underappreciated role, right? That person can be a paraplanner who's helping create financial plans and doing the data and doing the analysis. Uh, those are the behind the scenes individuals who, a lot of times in this morphed part of the industry where we're helping people take action, is delivering on the paperwork that's necessary, whether that's electronic paperwork or in-person paperwork, to help somebody take the actions. Right? They're the ones that are very granular in the doing of things. That person needs to be very detail oriented, very task oriented, very oriented to calendar, and to making sure that they have embraced a process for getting the work done consistently and to a high quality standard over and over and over again. That person always doesn't need to be an extrovert. That's, that behind the scenes role is a perfect fit for somebody who's an analytic introvert who likes to make a difference in people's lives, but doesn't want to be the face to the client or doesn't want to be in front of a client all the time. And there's a necessity for individuals like that right now in our industry, what I'll call the behind the scenes doers. It's a super important role that some practices have underappreciated over time. Not John's, not ours, but that individual has a place in this industry. I don't want to make it sound like everybody has to come in as an extrovert and be client facing, right? Then there is the person who's on the other side of that client relationship, right? That person needs to first and foremost always have high integrity because you have somebody's financial life in your hands, right? They have to have high emotional competence because you're not always going to be faced with the easiest of conversations when somebody's in front of you and they've just lost a spouse to a premature passing, or they've just been fired from a job that they absolutely loved and held for years and worked hard for, or the markets are down, right? Things that are outside of their control. We have to have high emotional intelligence to help people can influence and control the things that they can, so that the things that they can't influence are better shaped down the road by controlling the things. You'll hear me say that word, personal economy, so that they can control the pieces of their personal economy that they can, so that the outcome around those things that they can only influence become more certain in the future. We can't control markets. We can control our savings and our risk tolerance, and we can control our behavior when markets get ugly. We can't control being fired from a job that we love, but we can control our next best action, which is getting back up on our 2 feet, right, and applying again and finding the right job at the right pay with the right benefits that keeps our family and our financial house intact. So that person is the advisor's emotional competence to be just rock solid when somebody else isn't, is a necessity. And again, that integrity thread has to come through there. 3, the ability to be empathetic so that we can feel what our clients are feeling, so that we can be on the same side of the table with them with regard to what they're trying to do. So you'll hear some advisors refer to this as having the heart of a social worker, but the mind of a capitalist, right? We want to have the empathy of a social worker. We want to have the listening skills of a social worker, but we still want to have the mind of a capitalist and be able to pivot and say, okay, here's what's best for you as a family. Seeing through all the emotion, here is still the next best action for you and your family. So somebody who's able to pivot from being in the emotional side of their brain back to the analytic side of their brain pretty quickly, and sometimes within a short period of time, minutes inside of a client meeting. And then having good education and presenting skills so that we can educate people and do it in a simple way that the average person can understand why they're doing something, not educating from a position of knowledge and overusing jargon or overusing industry terminology, but keeping it very, very simple. And a lot of times in the vein of storytelling or using analogies so that somebody really has a grasp on why they're doing something. Because if somebody can understand the why, then they'll always do the what. But if we just tell somebody what to do and they don't understand the why, a lot of times when things do get hard or they don't work as planned or in the time frame that somebody had in their head, that's when they stop doing it. So we want to have somebody understand the why so that they always take action on the what that's going to get them to where they want to go. So somebody who's a good educator, storyteller, can use words to paint that picture for somebody else. And again, usually that person has an extroversion and does not get tired in a day changing gears and changing their ability to communicate in front of a variety of clients, because you don't see just one client a day. You typically see 3 to 4 to 5 clients in a day. So the ability to change those gears in between meetings and be mentally flexible or to be able to adjust with very little time in between periods of activity is a must for that front-facing advisor or that client-facing advisor.
Yeah, I really appreciate that whole answer. It's incredibly packed with wisdom there. And, let me highlight a couple of things that I really like. I think that it boils down to a lot of emotional intelligence, right? That
Hmm.
EQ, to be able to, integrity, like we say, is necessary, right? So that's part of the job description when you're facing clients. But to be able to really empathize with a client and see what they're going through their eyes, like you said, going through a bad market, a loss of a job, things like that. That it's hard for you to understand because you're not in it, but to be able to really empathize with that person, put yourselves in their shoes, and talk to them as if you would want to be talked to that situation is so important for helping clients deal with these hard financial times, right? So being an advisor, I think, really boils down to how emotionally intelligent you can be, with a combination of obviously the financial planning intelligence, right? So there's going to be a bunch of behind the scene advisors, like you said, that are needed in this industry to kind of support these front facing, client seeing advisors. And, maybe you can be both, certainly, or one or the other, but I don't think the industry will exist without the other one. And
Hmm.
like for me, I've been spending a lot of time reading books about different types of emotional intelligence, and like you said, storytelling. Storytelling is huge to be able to really connect with someone and get them to understand a point, or providing them with an example to reinforce whatever we're talking about, right? So those are so important and something that I'm really trying to hone in on. Do you have any recommendations for getting better at that emotional intelligence piece, or is that something that really just comes with time?
So there's an old saying in the emotional intelligence world: you can increase your IQ, but you can increase your EQ. Right? Our IQ is pretty static once our brain is formed, and we can either use our IQ to its fullest or we can underuse it. Right? So IQ is pretty steady. EQ, and the good news for EQ is that it can be built over time. And so we can always be better with our emotional intelligence. And so there's always a chance for us to get better. So some of the things that allow us to get better, or some of us to have a good baseline of EQ, if we're grateful, it's harder for us to be shaken off of our core, right? So having some type of daily cadence where you call out what you're grateful for, and even if it's the small stuff. So every day when I get out of bed, I turn to the side, I put my 2 feet on the floor, and before I'm really even out of bed in the morning, I find 5 things to just be grateful for at the start of my day. Over time, that morphs into, as you're walking through your day, you find yourself saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, right? And that sheds off the stress that tough moments bring, is the ability to stay centered on the grateful pieces. Two, creating an inventory of your top 5 values and taking the time to actually write them down. And again, when we understand the why, then we do the what. So writing those 5 values down and then defining why they're important to you. What experiences in your life made those things important to you? What situations in your life brought out that value is important to you? And then creating a list of how are you going to live as a person inside those 5 values? How are you going to show the world through your actions, not your words? So that's who you are. Starts to create a baseline to build EQ from, right? And then there's techniques that we could, read about. We can go back to the old 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that Covey wrote, and there's techniques in there to build EQ. There's the Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior that was written by the Bramfman brothers, that we can say, okay, what are those irrational behaviors that we have as a human being that we want to get rid of so that our EQ gets stronger? But if we build from a foundation, right, of gratefulness and values, then all the stuff that we either read, or all the podcasts that we listen to, or all the people that we meet that make a difference in our lives, then can build on top of that foundation. It's a strong foundation to start with. So I'd say get your foundation right first, and then read as many things as you can on the topic and build from there. Pick 1 or 2 things or 3 things a quarter to use and implement and build from. Find people who already have a high degree of EQ and allow their behaviors to just seep in and become part of, again, who you are. And it's not plagiarism when we're taking things away from great people. It's flattery, right? So we
Flattery.
can, yep, it's flattery to emulate people who are great people is flattery. It's not plagiarizing that person. So, learning from that person, getting into different podcasts, or, watching different clips on how to handle or shed stress, or how to think through things and not let those negative thoughts in our head impact our next best actions. But you got to build it from that base.
Yeah, I really appreciate that advice, Mr. Penica. It's emotional intelligence is so important, and sharpening that skill now at our age is going to be crucial. And making sure that we're properly taking care of clients as our careers progress. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've taken a large emphasis on it, and I know I share the same mindset with you about how important it is. So I appreciate the advice on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to ask a final question here. Just about some advice you would give to people like me. What would be your guidance with hindsight for going into this industry for someone that's interested in becoming an advisor or getting into the wealth management industry today?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to steal a saying from one of my peers over at Cut and Wealth Management. That peer made a comment that I thought was really poignant. If you're sitting in a room full of people and you don't want to be like any of them, then you're in the wrong place. If you're sitting in a room full of people and you look at them each in a character stance and you want to be just like people in that room, then you found your work home, right? There are great places in the financial services industry that exist today that didn't 20 years ago. Great firms with great values, with great missions, with great client care, with great service models. But still, the majority of the industry is being run by solo practitioners who haven't embraced being part of a team yet, and they haven't embraced defining their business, let alone themselves, right? Find a place where when you walk in the room, you want to be part of that space. You want to be like the people that are there. If you walk in and you think you're going to change a 50 or a 60-year-old advisor in the way that they do things, and you're going to be their young junior, you're probably not. They've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. If you don't want to be like them, you're already in the wrong spot. Take your talent, take your wisdom, even at a young age, take your intelligence, take your spirit, take your energy that you have as a young person to somewhere that's going to appreciate it and let it grow. Right. And then that's what allows you as a young group of advisors to make a difference in this industry. Don't come into somewhere where they're not going to appreciate all that great stuff about you.
Yeah, I thank you very much for that. It's something that, I think you just really hit it on the head. Being in a room that you want to be like people in that room, and if there's no one there that you aspire to be like, you need to get out of there, right? So that's been super important for me, and that's been a good like acid test in a sense that
Mm-hmm.
you understand where you're at and if this is the right place for you. So I think that's a great way to and analyze the places that you're at, right? So for people that are listening that could be at different internships at all different types of places, make sure you really want to be at a place like that. And if you don't, it's not too late to find something else. We're 21 years old, like the great Gary V says, like we always talk about how he always talks about how young everybody is and like we can make mistakes for the next 20 years and still end up all right. So don't be too hard on yourself, but try to find that spot that you really do want to be. You see yourself in that position 20, 30, 40 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'll definitely take that advice. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And I'm going to challenge the Gary V part for just a second. We can all make a bunch of mistakes for the next 20 years. And yes, we can course correct and still end up where we want to be. But imagine if you make just 50% less mistakes between your 20s and your 30s and your 30s and your 40s. How much further ahead would you be? Right? If you find
a lot,
right? So if you find places with great people and you find places where, there are great teachers and there are great mentors that are another acid test. Is this place going to help me make 50% less mistakes in my own life or even less? over the next 20 or 30 years, then you're already in a place where you're going to be that much further ahead when you're 40 and you're 50. So
Yeah.
put yourself in a position now around those people to make less mistakes and be further ahead than peers at those same stages of life.
Yeah. Mr. Penica, I can't thank you enough for this episode. This has just been full of wisdom, and I really appreciate you coming on and giving me some time to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks for making time for me today, too, Ryan.
I'll always have time to speak to you. Well, I thank you for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day.